we don't meet timeframes, we lose our opportunity to participate. So when it comes to the panel, the Act does state that the relevant local authorities, so both us and a district city council, can nominate one person. That is one person. Ideally, we agree on we won't get the nomination we've put forward. And if we don't make a nomination in the time frame specified by the convener, we lose that ability to nominate, and it goes through the convener to make a decision based on what she thinks is the most appropriate person. Another thing is that the panel must include an understanding of te ao Māori and Māori development, in addition to the local authority nominations. So to date, the panel convener has taken into consideration comments received by iwi and Runganga and asked them to provide an example of this is through the Tekapo one, where it was raised by the Runganga that they wanted someone with experience of tikanga on the panel, and the panel convener agreed that the fourth person actually requested the nomination from the Runganga. So, as I said earlier, there is 23 projects within Canterbury region. We've got about 15 projects on our books at various stages. So we've got 5 projects at the referral stage. So these are the ones that aren't listed in the Act. They're seeking referral. One has been referred, so that's the Grampian Solar Farm, which is on Grampian Station in the Basin, and we've got 3 in progress, another solar Twizel, and then the Pukaki Lake Meridian, and also Momentum had, which is a development East Kaiapoi, they had lodged a referral. And we know we're in conversations with other ones that are considering if they should go down this track as opposed to the RMA route. And we've also got 4 projects that have been submitted for substantive application. So these are projects that are accepted, either listed or the referral's been accepted. And the decision-making panel, so we've already got the Tekapo panel's been put up, and we did seek a nomination from the Regulatory Hearings Committee a couple of weeks ago for the Ryans Road. That panel still hasn't been set up. We're still finding out issues that would be in front of that panel. And we've got a number of projects that are expressing an interest. So we're not quite sure year or life of this Act, but when we have to nominate someone, it will be determined around what applications are in front of us and the timeframes around. So currently we have a 2 to 3 days to nominate someone. Generally, the panel convener indicates if she's already got someone, and what she kind of indicates who we should be nominating. To date, that's mainly been planners. So, for example, with the Tekapo one, she already had a hydrologist in mind and a lawyer, and she requested that we have a planner, and the of which was Bianca Sullivan, and she has been appointed to that panel. So given these timeframes of the 2 to 3 days from the convener meeting, it's not really enough time for us to develop, put forward a paper to the Hearings Committee and seek that nomination. I think when we've done it to date, we've kind of put forward a lot more numbers, and then we've had the convener meeting and realised that we actually kind of probably only we've had a much more broader level of expertise in the RHC committee paper, but after the convener meeting, it's kind of clear we probably only needed to go forward with 4 of them because she wanted a planner. So in order to respond to that, what we want to do is create kind of a long list of potential nominees. These nominees all have them making good decisions, and we want the Regional Hearings Committee to approve this list for, say, the next 6 months, and then we have a pool of people that we can pull from based on the particular application, based on the direction from the panel convener at the convener meeting, based on discussions with the relevant district council because we want to nominate the same people, and also around the issues that the application, may rise in terms of effects. And this list has nominees with the skills and expertise required for a bunch of the projects. Some are probably more appropriate for other projects than others. And we've also been consulting with Ngāi Tahu and District and City Council around refining this list. And that is probably another thing that's quite important to us, that whoever we're nominating is going to sit well with everyone. So by approving this list, we mitigate the risk of being able to nominate someone within the timeframes, and we will report back to the Regional Hearings Committee when a nomination is made and once panel members have been confirmed.
So to summarise in essence there, we have a very small, limited role in this fast-track process. Timeframes are really tight, and if we miss out on that window, the process simply moves ahead in front of us. You've heard from Nadia and us that next week we'd like to bring that paper with that list of nominees. That list will probably be quite substantive, with a number of names on that, given we have 23 or so on our books that have been talked about, with a bunch of different technical expertise, I suppose. So, over to questions.
All right, thank you very much for the presentation. I think I know that RHC members have had a little bit of trouble. Well, it's taken a bit of time to get our heads around the fast track stuff. So for councillor colleagues who are sitting at the table listening in, I appreciate this can be quite, almost quite daunting, but if you follow the arrows, it does sort of make sense. I think there's a couple of things just to note is that the referrals of both and listed projects are actually on the Fast Track website. So if you want to go have a look, they're all there, and the applications, and the details around it. So that's accessible. It's public, publicly available, and if you've really got a bent to or an inquiry to know what's going on, you can do that. And also with regards to the regulations that apply, or the fast track regulations, we have had a one-pager supplied by staff, which was very helpful. So for council colleagues, once again, that are sitting here, if you want, I can actually circulate that, so let me know around that. Now, I've got a couple of questions. I've got Nook's got a question, and Councillor Swiggs, Councillor East, Councillor Edge.
Mihi atu kia koutou. Thank you for the for this presentation, which is quite timely actually, because I just happened to be sitting in the RHC committee meeting, and it was quite confusing actually how around the makeup of the panel, and so this in some ways sheds some more light on that. My question is, with the makeup of the panel, and you mentioned that it's an iwi authority that is responsible for nominating, was it? Or actually appointing?
It's nominations, yeah.
For nominating a iwi representative. But you just used the word tikanga. So is that just one specialty that person has to have, or is there also a requirement that that person not only has tikanga but also has a very good insight into the RMA?
So the Act does specify that the panel has to include someone who has experience in Te Ao Māori development. There's also parts of the Act that, and this is probably more outside my area of knowledge, but refer back to requirements of settlements. And I know we've had conversations with Ngāi Tahu, and I think in terms of their settlement, it's a little bit more complicated, and they're seeking advice on how to do that through the EPA. And I know the convener is seeking kind of clarification on their particular settlement and what that means. But with the Genesis one, for example, the runga put forward that they wanted someone with tikanga. That's what they said in their memo, and it was recognised that was necessary, and so then the convener requested that they nominate someone who has that right experience. So I'm not sure. It's not really. It's certainly outside of my area of expertise.
Yeah. See whether we can get an answer. Well, Robin might have an answer for us as well.
Just do you want me to do the supplementary, or shall I wait for that?
We just see. Have we got some more info there, Nadia?
Yes. So there is the panel can also request. So the panel doesn't necessarily have to be experts in their own right in certain things. They can request advice and technical reports, and they can include particular issues. So one way to look at it is making sure that you've got a panel that recognises the importance, but they don't necessarily have to be an expert themselves, but they can commission those reports and commission that expertise to inform their decisions.
Okay, so that's similar to currently under the RMA, the same as under the RMA, that ability. Councillor Swiggs? Sorry,
I still
apologies.
wanted to understand, so Te Runanga o Ngāi Tahu actually gave you a steer on, what... Sorry?
Okay. I understand it might be the convener they give the steer to, the panel convener.
But they went for advice. We went to Te Runanga for advice. Is that right? No. I just want to understand the process, because, we've got all of this now and we're talking about the makeup of the panel, but there was advice sought from Te Runanga o Ngāi Tahu. And my understanding is the advice is that that's what the question is, because did they just say that they wanted someone with tikanga expertise as opposed to, so that person would go there to do the karaki and the mihi and to actually just sit there, and if there is some kind of takahia on any tikanga, then that's what they're there for, not actually, being involved in the decision, because if they're part of the panel, they're part of the decision making. Is that right? So my question is, when you sought advice from Te Runanga, was it actually wide enough to actually stop all this confusion about what if there is an iwi representative on this panel, is it only for tikanga?
Yeah, you answer it, Tim.
I wouldn't think. I'm not. You mean that ECAN sought advice from Ngāi Tahu, or?
Yeah. So I'm just wondering, Chair Pauling, or do you have another?
The way I understand it, Nick, is we don't have any control over the appointments other than the one that we're asked for. And I think in the RHC committee, when you came into that, some of our members were suggesting that while the convener had only asked for a certain type of person to sit on there, as the authority, we could have suggested someone else. That's what that was about. But in terms of it's the convener that goes to the iwi and now seeks advice, not us, on the fast track stuff. It's the convener, not us.
And I think just for clarity, I think I'm correct in this saying that we do still work with our runanga partners on the cases from an environmental aspect and giving advice back to the panel. So the partners are actually in...
That clears it up now. Because the convener, and then the convener will go to us, to get that advice. Okay, thanks.
Yep. Henry, do you want to round that out?
Yeah, no, that's right. So the process is that the convener will reach out to us and say, who's your person? That Jane Borthwick will also reach out to Ngāi Tahu as well to have that conversation. In the background, we're still having those conversations ourselves to go, well, we're going to put forward so-and-so. You're going to put forward so-and-so as well, same as what we're having with the different TAs as well. what's really important in this is that we're all talking to each other to ensure that we're putting up the right people and we don't end up in a situation where we've got a whole bunch of names and they're all different. There'll be different aspects to it, but particularly for that component, the convener will be asking Ngāi Tahu themselves, what is it that we want on that particular referral list of expertise, etc.
Just around the panel convener, is the panel convener a regional panel convener and she's got a length of time? For, like I mentioned, we're dealing with, you've referred to she, so I presume it's Jane.
Yeah.
And so she's there for a length of time to deal with what comes through in some sort of time frame?
My understanding is that she's just appointed, and
Okay.
there's I think there's a deputy convener, Helen Aitkins, to help her with that. But my understanding is that she is for, and I guess
Okay.
there's not time frames that time limits that I understand. It's one person for the whole country.
So as time goes on, she'll be very familiar with who should be sitting on what. Councillor Swiggs?
I'm going to talk a little bit about the membership of the panels as well. I think I want to understand this. I'm just going to bear with me to try and unpick this. So I'm reading the legislation. Like, I get the legislation. It is relatively straightforward. But I'm looking specifically at appendix, not appendix, at section 3, which is the membership of the panels, and then I interrelate that with clause 7, which is the skills and experience of the panel member. And this is where Nook's question one of the members must have understanding of te ao Māori or Māori development. That doesn't necessarily mean tikanga, but that's stipulated in there. And then it's stipulated that you've got to have somebody with expertise in environmental matters, which is probably what we'll be most likely always asked for. Knowledge, and then another one must have knowledge, skills, and expertise. So that's the other two, because if you go back to this section, clause 3, the membership of the panels may appoint up to 4 persons. Sorry, bear with me. And then you go to subclause 7. Despite the limit of the specified membership by subclause 1, that number may be exceeded, including by the appointment of more than one person nominated under subclause 3. Now, subclause 3 is where we've got our relevant local authorities. So what I'm thinking here is, if we ever wanted to give the middle finger to the convener and say, actually, we don't agree with this, we could kind of say the convener's asked us to put somebody with that environmental knowledge, and they've got their 4 people, she's got her 4 people in mind, and we give her the middle finger and put Claire Mackay on there and say instead, because it says they may be elected members of the local authority. That means there'd have to be 5 members, because so there is kind of a way to screw the scrum of these panels a little bit if there was ever the want to do it.
I can go. Look, there's a lot of clauses there, and I think I'd need to go through and have a look at them a bit more deep and dive. But on the face of it, yes, that seems. But I guess we've got to remember our role here, and our role here is when the panel asks us to put up person X, we put up person X. And if, like us coming back to RHC next week with a panel, we're looking to have a group of people there ready to go in terms of technical ability.
Yeah, but the reason I'm asking this is because the last couple we've been asked for a planner, which is a planner with expertise in the environmental space. The convener must have someone, as per the section 7(1)(a)(2), expertise in the environmental matters. So I'm just when you come to the table and say you must make sure that this is the person that we choose, it's not necessarily the way I'm reading the legislation is it's not necessarily the case. So it's not like a fait accompli is what I'm trying to get at. There is a bit of room in there for us as local authorities to have whoever we wanted to put on there, but as long as they've got the making good decisions, from what I understand.
They don't have to have making good decisions.
Well, that makes it even easier. Then we could have anybody.
And I guess,
I'm just...
Councillor Swiggs, I'm just conscious of time.
Okay.
I'm guessing that the panel convener has the last say in the decision.
No, they don't, because if the membership of the panel must include one of the nominated from the relevant local authorities. What I'm trying to say is that we do have a say in who we want to have. We could put anybody that we want on there, and if we don't necessarily have the skill sets that the convener wants, they have to get the extra skill sets that they have asked us for anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Look, I'm just conscious that we've got 15 minutes and I've got 5 people that want to speak. I'm
Local voice.
I'm a little bit mindful that this was an RHC meeting, so I'd quite like to focus, if I can, first on the RHC members' questions and then go back to the wider councillors. So I'll go to you, Councillor Edge, first.
Thanks, Chair. My questions, and I'm looking at the Act as well, Section 3 and Section 7. One thing that, to avoid the confusion at the list that you've got, was just understanding that the convener is the person who will arrange for the person with Te Ao Māori background. If that is guaranteed, then that's something we don't necessarily need to get involved with. So it's just confirming that that is part of the, when you come back to us next week, that you're actually confirming that that's the case, that we can be assured that person is engaged. Is that right? Okay. And then the other stuff really is to do with those Section 7 skills, relevant skills. If they're asking for a planner, but that might be fine. But it does say in Section 3(7) that despite that limited specified membership, that depending on the case, and it gives a list of things that you can consider, other members could be added through the convener saying, yes, we would like somebody with more skills in blah, blah. And so that's your understanding as how that would work. It might be that the expression through you guys of the importance of this skill set being part of the panel. Okay.
Thank you. Craig, do you want to go now?
Kia ora. Look, I don't really have a question other than to say I do agree that a list would be really useful, especially the turnaround. So I do support that. It would be good to understand, obviously, have them listed by expertise, so we're clear that when they do ask for a planner, these are the bunch of people that would be put forward, and that so those expertise are listed as well. But I do wonder, just picking up on Dion's point and maybe Grant's point as well, that where it does line up with an RHC meeting, it should be brought to an RHC meeting. Where it doesn't, you default to the list. So it's a bit of bob each way, to be honest. But I think that's a good process. A bit like with our submissions, if they can come to a council meeting or a S&P meeting, they do. Where they don't, we have that other process. So I just think we probably should have both. So thank you.
I think we'll try and make it to an RHC meeting rather than an S&P meeting. Look, we've got okay, I'll go to you, Genevieve, as a member.
I'm actually just going back to the comments earlier on about pressures perhaps on current consenting staff. And I guess with the ability of just general Joe Bloggs' consents coming through and replacement consents and the likes coming up for review, how could this impact that current consent? It could become a backlog, or how are we going to address that coming forward if we see something a little bit untoward coming forward? And the second part of that is, I guess, the assessment. Will we be rushing through some of these replacement consents? I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but I guess it's a real risk that we could be pushing through consents without due diligence as we normally would because we're under such pressure. And I'm just hoping that the legal side of that is looked at ahead of the play. So I can understand your struggles, and I'm just trying to think ahead of how we may mitigate. Thanks.
Okay, can I just answer? I'll answer and then hand it over to you. My understanding is we have a separate team that's dealing with this, separate team of personnel. That's correct. So, Henry, can you just close that out?
The fast track work is being done out of the significant proposals team at the moment. That was an additional team that we stood up during the backlog. That team was established to work through our significant consents, our big proposals. So this is an additional thing that we've bolted onto the site. We have looked at our resourcing and trying our best to, manage our workload in front of us. Part of our role is by looking externally, having conversations with those bigger players to get a bit of an idea of when are these big things coming up so that we are prepared. The thing that we can't control necessarily is some of the fast-track applications that come into us in terms of the collaboration aspects. They will come in quite quickly. So we're trying to obviously do our normal day-to-day processing. We've got a big team and a really good team that can get on with doing that work. But equally, sometimes it's a surprise and we don't know, and that's the nature of consenting.
If something untoward does happen and you need, to actually speak to it, you wouldn't hesitate, would you, coming forward if you need extra staff or the likes, just making sure it doesn't turn into something that we don't, yeah.
Okay.
Just following up on that, Councillor Robinson, I mean, it is fully recoverable, which does give us a bit more flexibility to be able to go particularly to external people who have the skills to be able to help if there is that sudden influx. But yeah.
Sorry, it's just that, I'm sorry, I'm unsure of your first name. Oh, yeah, earlier on, she said that it's mostly fully recoverable. So I'm assuming that some things may not be, or, so that's what I was referring to as well.
The stuff that really isn't recoverable is probably more the administration and process side of it. So, for example, this meeting, like our time here wouldn't be, but when we're assessing applications, we charge that to the individual applicant for which the application is for, and we can also, and we have already got external people in for some science and tech advice, and to make sure that we can deliver what we need on time.
Okay, I'm just conscious. You're right, Henry?
The only thing I'd add there is that in terms of the fast-track applications, we've made a bit of a conscious decision to make sure they are done with processed internally. Regarding the normal day-to-day processing of applications, we do have the ability when we get to a certain level to send some externally. So we have support and resources available for us to do what we are here to do.
Okay, look, I'm just very conscious we've got another speaker coming in 7 minutes or thereabouts. Got 2 questions. It's actually less than 7 minutes. So a quick one from Vicky and then Ian.
So my question is going to be on recoverable costs. So when you're charging for the fast track, is it actually at recoverable 100%, or is it at the hourly rates that we agreed in our annual plan, which are actually recovering 66%? And then when we go out for a comparable, you're talking about potentially having to go out instead to external people for some of the work if it ends up with an excess. My understanding was that if it's a comparable level and type of work that we could do internally, that we would then be charging at the 66%, and whatever the consultant was charging, which could be quite a bit more, that our ratepayers would be picking that up. So is that, if it's our consents that we're having to put more out for to externals because of the fast track work, we are actually covering quite a lot potentially. Is that, am I right in this?
So regarding the sending things out to externals, our external processing rate has dropped quite a lot away, given we're working through remaining legacy work at the hearings and things like that. So we don't have a huge amount out there at the moment, which means we're processing most of our things internally. I'll let Nadia answer the first part of that question though.
Yep, so in terms of the rates, they're set by the EPA and they're available publicly on the website under the fees and charges under the Fast Track website. So, for example, an advisor is $192 an hour you can claim for. I don't know what that looks like in comparison to how we charge for other things, but a senior advisor is $266 an hour, so that's what we can claim for.
Okay. Yeah, quick question.
Very briefly, I'm still looking at that horrific diagram you put up. How does this process speed up? How does it do what it says it does, which is fast tracking?
You know, which specific areas in this diagram are speeding up the current process?
Going to be a real good test for the government, isn't it, Ian, to see how permissions actually work. So it'll be interesting to see if they stick to their statutory timeframes.
I think Nadia outlined that at the
There is an
first
element of
place.
seriousness in my question.
No.
Where in this bloody diagram is the process expedited? Is it at the back end? Is it the second half of the purple bit, or is it in the
It's the bundling of all of the statutory regulations at the same time. So, yeah. Nadia, would you like, or Hendry?
The only thing I can really say there is that this is a one-stop shop, and that is what it's been built on fast track. Everything is being looked at in one place, pulled together, and dealt with in one particular time.
And also limited
so it has
appeals.
specific advantages to people who got a consent going to TAs, but if your consent was only to be to an RC, then it's not necessarily going to make any difference. Is that what you're saying?
Sort of. It's also about appeals. So you might have an application that might actually fly through a regional consenting process because the regional consent issues are not big, but it might be a really time-consuming process from a district consenting point of view. Or you've got wildlife permits, land exchanges, things like that. So it bundles them all together to be considered at one point in time, rather than an application getting something but not actually having so they have their district and regional consents, but they don't have their wildlife permit or their heritage authorisation.
Okay. We'll watch with progress how it happens, and in a year's time we'll have a report back and just see how it does cope. But look, thank you very much, and thank you for fellow councillors who aren't RHC for sitting in and just learning a little bit about the process. So thank you, staff, and we'll change over to whoever's doing the next one.